Education Today.
I'm Lacey Freeman.
And I'm Brittany Johnson in the Armstrong School District. The Allegheny-Kiski Health Foundation recently released Heroin Lives Forever Changed, which is a hard-hitting reality-based documentary about heroin addiction in our communities. It's told by local individuals who've experienced the devastating effects of the drug firsthand.
The DVD focuses on how heroin impacts the lives of those around addicted individuals, including riveting testimonials from Kathy and Denzel Morgan, who recently lost their 29-year-old son, Jeremy, to heroin addiction, and another local man who continues to struggle with the ongoing addiction of a young family member. The video also looks at heroin abuse from a community and law enforcement perspective.
Tonight, we're sharing the video in its entirety with you. We hope that through increased awareness, we as a community can prevent more of these unthinkable tragedies from occurring.
Note to parents, because exposure to the drug frequently occurs during the middle school, high school, or college years, the film is appropriate for audiences beginning at age 14 with no upper age limit. Adults will benefit as well.
Now, we would like to present the 26-minute video titled Heroin Lives Forever Changed.
Well, I remember the first time that I tried heroin. I got really sick, and I was outside the trailer throwing up, and really, really sick, you know. And anybody in their right mind, if they did something and it made them sick, you know, who would do it again? But there was a moment, there was probably 20 minutes that I wasn't sick, and it was probably one of the best feelings of my entire life that I've ever had. And from that moment on, I chased that until it almost killed me, and I never found it ever again. It just completely devastated my life looking for that moment.
When I first began my career in narcotics, I always imagined the stereotypical heroin user as being an individual lying in a gutter in the inner city with a needle in his arm. Today, that's much different. Today, it's hitting middle America, and all the little patch towns of our area, there's individuals using heroin.
Jeremy was a kind, compassionate person. He loved all types of sports. He was MVP in his senior year of baseball. He played football. He loved hockey. He loved any type of sports. He just was a good kid from a background that you know, we grew up in the country.
I really don't know how this could happen to Jeremy. He had a very good job. He was a financial analyst. He made very good money, and he was very respected by his boss. It seemed like he had everything going for him.
You know, we come from a middle-class family, kind of normal family. You know, my son played baseball and soccer and on the track team, and you know, did all the things that the kids like to do. You know, some hunting and fishing, and was, you know, like all kids, like to just be a kid. You know, but I'm sure it started with some drinking sometime, and then the next time it was doing some drugs, and you just never know. You think, wow, heroin's something that happens in the inner cities, but it really doesn't. It's out there. It's in the affluent communities. It's in every community. It's out there.
Like 13, when I said I started, you know, a little bit of marijuana and drinking was throughout, you know, my addiction the whole time, because I always thought that wasn't as bad, you know what I mean, that drinking wasn't bad. Probably from 13, 14, 15, you know, it was just the drinking and the smoking pot, and I'd dab a little bit of acid. I'd drop a few hits of acid here and there. You know, and a group of my friends, we'd go around and, you know, we'd just run the streets of Butler all night long just tripping. And And then from when I started eating the acid, we started doing coke.
We're seeing individuals experimenting with heroin at the early ages of 13, 14, and 15 years old. These individuals are snorting the heroin. They're telling me later that they would be sitting down in their basement at their mother's house while their parents are upstairs, and this kid, along with two of his friends, will split a $20 bag of heroin, and so that they can all get high on it. There's a myth with the youth that by snorting it, it's not addictive. They don't realize that it's the exact same drug, whether you inject it or snort it. The addictive qualities of the drug are there.
For my son, I'm sure it started with teenage drinking and, partying with his friends, going out and leading to, trying marijuana and some other pills. And we had a family member who was ill at the time and was taking a pretty substantial pain medicine. And those started disappearing. And at first it was just a few at a time, and we really didn't pay attention to it or notice it. But then it started to be in larger quantities, and I guess he was selling those oxys on the street and making a lot of money with that to pay for buying more of them that were high priced. And it got to a point where I guess it was less expensive to use heroin and supposedly a better high. And once he did that, it was over.
There was a time when junkies were the classic Skid Row stereotype. That's not the case anymore. In fact, today, I can line up 10 students from any high school, and chances are 6 out of those 10 kids are either using or have used in the past. So the stereotypes we used to know, the classic junkie stereotypes, are right out the window. That's not the case anymore. There's nothing and no income sector that these drugs, especially heroin, haven't affected.
I'm often asked by parents where their child would go to get heroin. They don't want to see their son or daughter traveling to the inner city to purchase this drug. I'm here to tell you the drug can be, the first time that an individual uses heroin, it's going to be presented to them by their very best friend. Their friend is going to offer it to them as a pain reliever, and that it's not addictive as long as they snort it. It's a big misconception.
We didn't really notice any problem. He just seemed so normal and just himself, and he was very good at hiding his problem.
Oftentimes when I arrest individuals for heroin use, as I'm transporting them from the jail, they're good kids from good families. And the amazing thing is, as I'm taking them to jail, they're not concerned about being arrested or the fact that they're going to jail. Their only concern is that they're going to be sick. The sickness is the heroin withdrawal, which has been described to me as the very worst flu you've ever had times 20. They're more afraid of that than anything else.
What makes heroin so dangerous is the marketing that drug dealers have entered into. There was a time when heroin could only be ingested via needles. What drug dealers figured out rather quickly was that there was a large market of users out there who didn't like needles. What they did was they increased the purity of their drugs to the extent that those who tried heroin in the 60s and 70s, what the purity levels we are seeing today have no comparison. What that's done, it is enabled the user to snort it or smoke it. And they've opened up a whole new market of users, of people who are afraid of needles, basically.
When individuals begin using heroin, they will experience the ultimate high the initial time. Subsequently, they're not able to obtain that high. They call that chasing the dragon, where they'll never be able to obtain that high again. Eventually, they will reach a point where they don't use heroin to experience a high. They use heroin just to get to where we're at today, just so that they can function. It's a crutch that they have to live with the rest of their life.
Yeah, there were points when, I thought, I might have a problem here. And then I'd throw some kind of wall up and say, oh no, I'm not that bad. I'm not like so. And I'd always compare them to somebody who's always worse than myself. And I'd say, well, I'm not as bad as so-and-so, or I'm not as bad as him, And You know, when you start stealing off of your family and you start doing things, you know, like you turn to all kinds of forms of ways to make money, to get money. And you have that thought where, what am I doing? You know, like, what is wrong with me? You know, like, there were points, and I can't, you know, pick out specific ones where I knew, certain moments where I knew, you know, I'm a drug addict, I know. You know, when somebody would call me a junkie, they'd be like, what are you doing, you junkie? Quit stealing, you junkie. That would hurt. I mean, I would get very offended. And I'd say, who are you calling a junkie? You know, I'm not a junkie. And I was. It's kind of like almost possessed in a way, but you really don't, you think ultimately that, no, I'm not, I have more willpower than that. But really, you know, it owned me. It owned me until it almost killed me.
As district attorney, one of the most frightening aspects of this drug is that the drug dealers have realized that they can create new addicts by either giving the drugs away or selling them very cheaply. They know they will have new customers because once you try heroin, you become addicted to heroin. Once you become addicted to heroin, it is a short journey before you, in fact, become a dealer, and it is an even shorter journey before you eventually start using a needle. You will start using a needle because the high you receive orally or by smoking it is no longer sufficient.
On our way back up 79, we would stop at this little gas station, and they had this like isolated restroom where you could go in and lock the door and, you know, do your thing. And we stopped there, and you know, she has her kid, and we go into the bathroom, and this lady is shooting up in her neck, like needle in her neck, pulls the needle out of her neck, and she's got blood running down her neck. And I remember like looking and seeing like, oh my God, like what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, this is what my life has come to. I'm hanging out with some woman and her poor child who's just totally, you know what I mean? Sad. It was really sad, and I thought, this is where my life's going. That was one of the moments when I thought, wow, I really need to do something. But you know, I was really in probably too deep by then to even. It's just sad.
Individuals who are addicted to heroin find themselves in a tunnel where they can't get out of, because they want to get clean, but they don't know how to do it. Individuals oftentimes try different home remedies to get clean. They may substitute heroin with another drug, but they always find themselves going back to heroin. Being clean from heroin is a relative term. Some individuals are able to stay clean for a week, some maybe even 2 weeks, but the drug typically will suck them back into using it. It's very few people that can actually beat the addictive qualities of heroin.
One of the most dangerous aspects of heroin is that it is cheap and easy, and that's what the drug dealers have figured out. They figured out that they can produce it cheaply, they figured out that they can sell it cheaply initially because they know once they sell it to you and once you use it, you are an addict. And once you become an addict, you're going to pay whatever price you have to pay to continue your addiction. That's what the drug dealer knows. Compared to other drugs, heroin is easy to make. It's easy to make and it's cheap to make, but it is highly addictive. The bottom line with heroin is that there are only two alternatives once you use it: addiction or death.
We would drive down, and we'd go down in different cars, different people, and I'd go down there sometimes 3 times a day, up, down, and back, and I'd buy heroin. We'd come up here, we'd sell it. And we'd turn around, take the money, we'd do whatever we had left, take the money, and turn around and go back down. I'm sitting there, and I look over, and there's this guy with this gun, and he's like, give me all, I don't even know what he mumbled, it was something about all your money, you know, because it was such a blur, and I thought, what's going on? And, you know, everybody in the car's just like, give him your money, and he robbed us. And, I mean, we're talking like a couple $1,000s, which is a lot of money. And what we do is we come back up here, and we turn around and went back down to the same guy in a different car with different people.
There was one instance where my son was in a rehab program, and part of the program for the folks, they let the kids go out and collect money at, I think it was one of the big stores. And after they had collected the money, he was with another kid who was local. And on their way back to the facility, they stopped and got some heroin, and they both snorted the heroin. And my son went back to the program, and his friend stayed and shot up. And they woke my son up later to tell him that his friend had died.
And I had this one-bedroom apartment with a boyfriend of mine. And we were sitting there, and this one guy started to go out. And when I say going out, I mean he's starting to overdose in my living room on my couch. I mean, he was turning blue. And you know, I remember bits and pieces of it, and I remember he was like, you were flipping out, and you were saying, get out of here, I'm getting out of here. You know, I was more worried about myself getting out of there. Like, we would have left him to die. You know, and my boyfriend's like shaking him, and we're throwing water on him, and thank God he didn't die. But, I mean, those are just the things, like, you know, I was more worried about getting out of there and bailing on the scene, and, like, I probably would have left him die. And that's sad, but that's just, you know, I was like, I'm not getting caught. I'm not going to go to jail. I'm not, you know, I have to get high.
One of the cases that comes immediately to my mind is a 19-year-old man. We were called to a motel room, and in that motel room, on the bathroom floor, literally, was a 19-year-old kid who had died of a heroin overdose. He had gone there that night to party with his friends, or at least the people he thought were his friends. When he began to overdose, rather than call for help, they allowed him to lay on that bathroom floor and die. You can't help but be affected when you see a story like that. Unfortunately, we're seeing too many stories like that across the state of Pennsylvania, and it's got to end.
I couldn't have told you from that point on I would enter into an 11-year binge that would take me to 12 rehabs. I would be in and out of jail. I'd be almost dead twice, once in front of my mother. You know, that you would think the first time would be enough. You know, if somebody would go to rehab and they'd, you know, get rehabilitated, and they'd come to their senses and think, why would anybody do this? Why would you almost like kill yourself? Why would you almost do these crazy things just to get the drugs? And the heroin just had such a powerful grip on me. I kept a journal, the first rehab I was in, and it was 01. And we're talking a period of 01 to 03 when I got clean. I had 12 rehabs. And I hit the psych ward a couple times in there because I tried to kill myself a couple times.
You know, it got so bad for my son where he felt, I guess, everything coming in on him from police, family pressures, everything that, you know, he told me he tried to kill himself on heroin, and he shot up and thought that was it, and he woke up and he just thought to himself, God must want me to live and have a purpose for me. And that's when he really kind of enthusiastically went into his rehab.
I do believe Jeremy knew what he was doing to everyone concerned. I also believe that if he could have helped it, he would have. He couldn't. It took hold of him. It would not let him go. We felt frustration, fear, helplessness, despair, every emotion possible in trying to help him with this addiction.
And he told us that things were different this time. He said, it's just different. And I asked him how, and he didn't want to tell me. He said, I just had a spiritual feeling come all through my body, Dad. And I know what he was talking about, because I think he gave himself to God, and this was the way things were going to turn out.
If he could have done something about it, he would have. The heroin took hold of him. It just would not let him go. It was a grip on him, and he just couldn't just couldn't shake it no matter how hard he tried. It wasn't willpower, it wasn't anything, it was just the drug, and that was all that was in his life, was the drug.
Yeah, I tell people when I've been to 12 rehabs and they think, well, it was, you know, the first time. Why didn't you get it the first time? Didn't you have any willpower? You know, and it's not about willpower. It's one of those things where, you know, it's a disease and the drug just grips and it won't let go until you're dead.
He moved out of here in March. He was out for about 3 or 4 weeks, and he was back to his old habits. He stole from his roommate. He took video games. He took whatever he could get his hands on once again. He re-entered inpatient rehab for another 28 days. He was out for less than 24 hours. He moved into a 3-quarter house, and within 24 hours he had gone out and used and passed away.
I've had a lot of friends die. I've had really, really good friends die from this, from heroin, from drugs, from, you know. I had a really good friend die in '99. She overdosed and died. She left behind a child, a little boy. I just had a friend die. He hung himself because of heroin. He couldn't get clean from heroin. I'd say probably percentage-wise of friends, this is what's going to happen to you if you do heroin, and I will guarantee it. I'd say probably out of 100% of people, I'd probably say 70% of my friends that have done it are dead. And I mean, we're talking, I can probably ramble off 20 names that I've been to funerals for.
I would just say to parents right now, don't believe everything they say. Investigate it, pursue it, confront it. They're actors. They can get to be such good actors. You cannot tell the lie from the truth, and it's the heroin talking, it's not your child.
During the course of my job duties, I talked to heroin users every day. If they had a chance to correct anything, it would have been the first time that they would have ever experimented with the drug heroin, because it's so addictive. I wish that I could have every child out there today talk to the users that I deal with daily, and they would see a life that they don't want for themselves. So if there's anything to be gained by talking to these users, that would be it.
But man, it just kills me. Like, just to go back and think of all the people that have been in and out of my life like that, you know? And I guaranteed if you would ask them if they would pick up heroin and know where it was going to take them, I know that they would say no. But they're not here to tell.
If you try it the first time, kids, you know, you're going to you could very well end up like our son. And don't think that you're infallible, that you can't be addicted. Jeremy thought he could fight anything, but he knew in the end he couldn't fight his addiction.
He's in a better place, and he's out of pain now, because he was in pain. He was in terrible pain, physically and mentally, yes.
And now it's our pain. And it won't go away.
Never.
Ever.
For anyone watching this, it's been my experience that one of 3 things will happen to anyone trying heroin. You're going to have a life of hell, or you're going to end up being arrested and going to jail, or you're going to die from its use.
My hope for any kids out there that are even considering drugs, heroin especially, and it's out there, it's everywhere. You probably know people that do it. Your life will be over as you know it. There's no going back. There's no. It's not like going out and getting drunk and having a hangover, and the next day, life's back to the way it was. It's over. Everything is all-consuming around your next time you can get high. So your relationships are done with your family, with your friends, your career, everything, your future is basically non-existent. There's a very slim chance with the intervention of God that you can get through and have a life, but from what I'm seeing, the chances are not that great. So it's you need to really, really think of what you're doing before you even consider taking heroin.
It's a losing battle. I mean, just don't do it. Hopefully somebody hears this message and gets something out of what I say, and remembers when you're at that spot in your life and remembers, hey, that Jamie girl, oh my gosh, look what happened to her. Look what, she almost died. Remember that. Remember that at that moment.
I think Jeremy did receive God in his life before he died.
He told us that he had a spiritual feeling, and he felt that it was different this time and that he was going to kick it. And that is the one thing that keeps us both going now, is knowing that he is in a better place and that he's free of his pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, in every way. Even though we're still in pain, we know that he's living a better life now.
And someday we hope to see him again.
We hope this video helps to raise awareness about the incredible dangers of heroin. The Allegheny-Kiski Health Foundation, based in Natrona Heights, PA, is releasing the video to school and community groups in the Allegheny-Kiski Valley and possibly to regional or national media outlets.
An interesting note, Miss McKinley, who you saw in the video, currently works with the young people struggling with addiction as a counselor for an alternative high school in Butler.
Well, that's our show for today. I'd like to thank the Allegheny-Kiski Health Foundation and CBT Creative Consultants for providing this video.
Our thanks go out to the TV production students at the Katanning High School, led by their teacher, Mr. Don Swanson. They were our film crew today here in the Armstrong School District TV studio.
Please join us again next week for another look at the Armstrong School District. Visit our website for updated information about the district and have a great week.